West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
With less than 6 weeks to go until Election Day, polling from Bloomberg News and Morning Consult continues to show a tight race in every battleground state. In the latest survey, Vice President Kamala Harris holds leads within the margin of error in every swing state but Georgia, where she and former President Donald Trump are tied in this poll. Harris leads by 3 points among likely voters in Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. She's also up by 7 points in Nevada, by 2 points in North Carolina, and by 5 points in Pennsylvania.
And the one race that she's tied in, Georgia, there's the latest Fox News survey of likely voters in Georgia. That has Harris ahead of Trump by 3 percentage points. Mm-hmm. That, too, of course, falls within the margin of error. So if you look at all of these polls, it's a tie. And you talk to both campaigns, they will tell you it's a tie. Gene, the Harris campaign is very interesting. They're sending out messages. You can tell the specter of the Great Pumpkin 2006 continues to rise over the pumpkin patch, and nobody is saying we feel good. So, like, well, I don't know.
I don't know.
But we finally, we had a long cross-examination last night, Mika and I, with a member, and after about 30 minutes of breaking it down, a couple drinks, they finally broke and said, okay, we feel okay, all right? But nobody's going to say that, all right?
How many drinks did it take?
For them, two or three in, and a spotlight on top of them. It was really, chained to a chair, a metal chair. But there is, it is. Please, come up and have a drink with us tonight.
Or Thursday night in Washington.
But seriously, they are so scared. Because what happened in 2016 when everybody was mocking Donald Trump.
Who doesn't have PTSD?
I know. So you talk to somebody in the Harris campaign, and you have to go deep to find somebody who admit polls are kind of breaking in our favor. And here shows again, except for one poll, which I won't name, the trend lines have been fairly positive over the past month.
No, they've been positive.
But
If you look at the trend lines, you'd rather be Kamala Harris right now than Donald Trump. If you want to win this election, right? Because you look at the long-term trend line and you see that it has crept up, and then she's getting awfully close to that 50%.
Right.
And Trump is basically steady. He's basically got 45, 46%.
Right.
Punto, that's it. But he's overperformed his polls in some prior elections. Everybody remembers 2016. Nobody is going to feel confident, and no one should feel confident, because it's going to be a turnout election. I mean, if Harris gets her voters to the polls, they've got the machine out there to do it. But if they get their voters to the polls, then that's a very different story from if they don't.
Right.
So.
And Elizabeth, you look at these numbers, obviously, in the Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll, Harris is doing well. The trend lines are very positive. You go back to before she was in the race and it was Joe Biden, you started to see states like Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire suddenly get uncomfortably close. Those races are no longer close. Trump's basically turning the towel off. So it really has. For those that say, oh, it would be the same with Biden, things have dramatically shifted.
A major difference. And as Jane says, the trend line is up for her consistently. We have polling showing that she is doing better on the economy than she was even 2 weeks ago, that she is beginning to catch up with Trump on her perceptions of who would be better for the economy. She's out there talking about what a rich guy he is and how she's, that she's a capitalist for the middle class. Her speech recently where she made clear, as he is saying, I'm not a Marxist, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a communist, I'm a capitalist, trying to, show friendliness towards business. She's got, a lot of these tax cuts, a lot of these plans for the young people, $25,000. I don't know where she's going to get the money for this, but she's talking about this $25,000 credit for first-time home buyers, $50,000 for startup new businesses. So she's beginning to make inroads there. But I should say, yes, there's a lot of concern about these hidden Trump voters. I can tell you that there are more newly registered Republicans this cycle than there are registered Democrats, despite the stories we've been running about all the college kids signing up.
Yeah.
And there is, and Trump is doing, in that group, he's doing better among younger men of color than you would expect.
Right. And Katty, the one thing that we have heard from the Harris campaign, even those that will be cautiously optimistic, is that Pennsylvania is the new Ohio. Pennsylvania has had a surge in Republican registration over the past 4 years. So they still believe they can and will win Pennsylvania, but they feel good about Michigan. They feel good about Wisconsin, relatively good. It may be a landslide. Maybe they'll win by a full percentage point in both of those states. But in Pennsylvania, they know it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a fight because she's doing better, much better among women and most young voters, but older white men, just like people thought after Biden left the race, more of a challenge, pulling them to vote against Trump again.
Yeah, I mean, older white men and actually younger white men too, also a bit of a challenge. I mean, that number they'll like a lot, up +5 in Pennsylvania, because you're right, it's the new Ohio, it's the new Florida, it's the state where they see they have the most problems. And of course, then either the concern or the upside, depending on how you look at this from the Harris campaign's point of view, is that Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin people think will break the same way. That's what they've done traditionally ever since 1980. I think there's one exception. And so if they lose Pennsylvania, what would that then mean for Wisconsin and Michigan? If they win Wisconsin and Michigan, does that mean they're going to win Pennsylvania? But that's why they're putting so much resources into that. But it's men. I mean, I think the real struggle for the Harris campaign is young men, older men, men of color, white men, and they are doing all they can. You can see, I think the debate next week will be really interesting to see how Tim Walz reaches out to that group. Doug Emhoff, who I interviewed yesterday, I think we've got a clip of that we can have later on the program. He is making a concerted effort in his own way to reach out to that group. They know that's where they know that's where they have a weakness.
And Sam, it's so interesting watching Trump yesterday. I don't know how long he spoke, maybe an hour, but it was hatred and vitriol toward, again, Springfield and migrants and these people who are ruining our country, doubling down on this rhetoric, on these lies. It must be working for them.
Well, they would love to talk about immigration for the rest of the election if they had their druthers. The problem they've had is that they've concocted a bunch of racist lies about Haitians, and they've distracted the conversation from immigration to whether they're being truthful about immigration. That's a different conversation. But I think if it's not a particularly great insight. They've been banking on young men They put Trump on these platforms. Most of them are not TV platforms. They're podcasts, they're YouTube videos. They want to generate more enthusiasm among young men, but also young men who've not necessarily been politically engaged before. That's a high risk, high reward strategy for them, right? The reason is they haven't been politically engaged, so can they activate them? I will say we go all over these poll numbers incessantly. You can drive yourself crazy. I think the more important numbers aren't the polls. It's around the economy. And so when you have gas prices that are going down a little bit, when you have interest rates being cut, when you have the 30-year fixed mortgage rate that's at its lowest level in a couple of years, those are the things that are going to materially matter more in this election, I think, because it does add to the perception that the economy may be improving, which then in turn gets imparted on Kamala Harris because she is part of the administration. And I thought the most important data point and story yesterday was, in fact, from your paper, which looked at that the view of voters in terms of her ability to handle the economy, which is usually correlated to the election, and she isn't making improvements there. If she can get to a tie with Trump or even better him, I think that is way more important than any Bloomberg Morning Consult poll.
You don't like Bloomberg Morning Consult?
I like them. I do. I will say, just to circle it all here, this morning the Harris people put out a fundraising email, and they chose a certain poll to highlight. It was the New York Times Siena poll, because they love the idea of people freaking out, because then they can write checks.
Let me tell you, I joke about the New York Times Siena poll, but I think the Democrats are actually funding the polling.
They love it.
Because every time one comes out, every Democrat freaks out. We must work harder. We must spend more money. Go. There's been, Jonathan Lemire, for some time, the suggestion that the only way that Joe Biden before, but now Kamala Harris can get to 270 is to go through the blue wall of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. The fact is, now let's put up the Bloomberg poll that Sam Stein so derisively commented about, and see, and to show you their new pathway. If they do not win Pennsylvania, they feel more confident every day with North Carolina. They feel good about Georgia, and they feel good about Nevada. I've got to say that Nevada +7 sticks out like a sore thumb. That sticks out to me kind of like Wisconsin +14 before the 2020 race where Joe Biden was supposed to win that state. I think it was an ABC poll. Supposed to win that state by double digits. Nobody's going to win Nevada by 7 points. But still, they have several pathways to 270, and they're playing it that way. They are going to go down fighting in North Carolina and Georgia.
Yeah, there's no question. There's no one involved in the Harris campaign who thinks they're up 7 in Nevada. I think that people think that's a tie. Nevada is one of those states that's always razor thin. It tends to break Democrat at the last minute. They think it will again, but certainly no one thinks it's going to be that lopsided. I think you're right about the path. They feel very good about Michigan, Wisconsin fairly well. Pennsylvania is, as you guys have rightly said there, a source of real anxiety. Demographic trends are breaking away from Democrats in that state. There are some prominent Democratic thinkers and pollsters who think in a cycle or two, Pennsylvania might slip away like Ohio and become more of a light red state. But right now, it's a true battleground. It's going to be very close. But they feel great about North Carolina. As we'll get to later in the show, Donald Trump was asked point blank yesterday about Mark Robinson, the controversial gubernatorial candidate there, and he chose not to disavow. He just suggested, well, I don't know enough about it, and walked away. So Democrats are going to continue to tie Robinson and Trump together. And in terms of Harris, her two biggest weaknesses heading into this election were perceived as the economy. And as you guys have just mentioned, polls show that she's really picked up steam there. That speech in Pittsburgh this week has been pointed to. The Fed rate cut, helpful. Gas prices lowered, people feeling better about the economy. And the other is immigration. And as we're going to talk a little bit later, she heads to Arizona today, one of those states like Georgia, a true toss-up. And she's going to talk about, she's going to the border, she's going to talk about immigration, and she's going to squarely blame Donald Trump for killing the bill that would have helped.
It is Friday, the 27th of September of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Yes, how are you? Hey, I went through the gallery on my phone and found some pictures of little Precious when we went down for my mom's celebration of life in Southern California, when she went with me and stayed in my hotel room with me, and I took her pretty much everywhere. She never really stayed. Well, I mean, she stayed in the room when I went down to the lobby to have dinner at the little restaurant they had there at the hotel I was at. But other than that, she accompanied me everywhere on that trip, and so that was kind of nice. And I also found some other photos of her just about, well, before she started getting sick. So I guess I'll share those on social media. I miss her so much. I don't know. Of course, I have Gunnar, and we're the best of friends and everything, but I was so taken with that little thing, and I never thought I would be. But I was. She needed some extra care, and as I said, I guess it was sort of a transition from, caring for my mom for so long, and towards the end it was a lot more hands-on. So mom was not able to do a lot of things at the end, even though I got to tell you, when she accompanied me everywhere, because I wasn't going to leave her alone for a couple of years there. She just went everywhere with me because I just could not have her alone for an hour even. A lot can happen in an hour. So you want to kind of be there. And at the end, I mean, a lot can happen in just a couple of minutes too, in the time it takes to get out of bed, get up, I don't know. It wasn't even minutes. Anyway, Little Precious was a good transition from that caring. I guess I still care, but even with Gunnar, I mean, he had a few issues there after Precious passed that were being tied up. And in fact, we went for his recheck appointment after getting his sutures out, so 7 to 10 days after, and he's got a clean bill of health. He's doing really well. I'll have to continue now. Cleaning his folds won't be as hard on him or me, but that still has to be done daily. But I also need to put either Neosporin or just simple Vaseline on his nose because the keratin buildup, I could be endemic to him, but he's got a bit there, and if we don't stay on top of it, it'll get cracked, and he'll be irritated, and then who knows, he could get an infection from that, so we don't want that either. But, there's a little bit of care with old Gunnar, but he's got a clean bill of health. He needs to lose some pounds. He's kind of a potato. Got to get him back to being a svelte bulldog, English kind. But, I can tell every now and then that even though it's been a while, because he went in to get his surgery on the same day that Little Precious, when Doc called me in, because she was going to get her regular weekly IV drip, and around 1:30, 1:50, I got the call from the vet that she's not going to last. And so I buzzed down there. I was actually putting gas in the car at the time. So when I got the buzz and I saw it was from the vet, I immediately took the call. And just still putting a positive spin on things. I thought they were calling me saying, well, we're done with Precious, so you can come and pick her up here in a little bit. And no, it wasn't that at all. So why am I ruminating over all of this? I don't know. It's Friday. It's Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. I think we're supposed to be crying in our gin, or whatever it is that we decide that will be in front of us. It could be a ginger ale. Simple ginger ale. Cry in your ginger ale. Well, when you love people and pets. I guess pets are people too. When they're gone. Are they truly gone? We get to say, oh, well, we have the memory. That's something that exists. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to get into the philosophical discussion about whether memories really have some sort of material existence? Yeah, we could. It's been done before, but we could do it again. Anyway, I miss my mom. I miss my dad. I miss my son. I miss our pets. I miss friends. Yeah, even we got friends that are falling by the wayside now, too. We're at that age. Boy, I woke up this morning thinking, boy, you know, my mom's memory of her childhood, to her, that didn't seem that long ago. We think of our parents' childhood as being so long ago, and then you get to a similar age and you go, you know what? Yikes. And then it makes one, or made me more aware of the absolute, like, monumental changes that my mom experienced in her lifetime, and my dad as well. We used to talk about our grandparents. I had a grandma that they still had a horse and buggy thing, and we were talking about landing on the moon and the technology that went from horse and buggy to landing on the moon within my grandma's lifetime. Just made me aware of things, of how time is all relative. It truly is. But with Mom, I think of like the social upheavals and changes that she experienced, because where she grew up here in Southern Oregon, I got to tell you, I mean, the Klan was writing at the time she was a little kid. And as a little kid, she would express this idea of like, well, why would you be harming that family over there just because they're black? She could never put it together. Why hate was predicated upon a person's color or the way they looked, or if they were injured in war or injured on the job, I mean, it used to be back in the day, cripples were shunned. The whole term cripple was pejorative. Yeah, effing cripple, get out of my way. Oh, you cripples want handouts. Well, yeah, because they've been damaged by some sort of industrial accident or a war. Give me a break. Talk about Christian charity. I thought Christian charity was getting a slap across the face. How dare you ask for anything, you little bugger. Commie booger. What? Anyway, Mom could never put that together. She could never understand that. So, of course, she imparted that concern upon her kids. And, well, 3 of us took it to heart. Of the 4, because you always got to have one outlier. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to rebel against empathy and care. Okay. I got you. Every kid wants to rebel against their parents, but I don't know. I always thought, like, rebelling against empathy and care was, well, on the higher scheme of things, not really correct, shall we say. I like to think I'm correct. All right, what else is happening? Well, old Eric Adams, still under indictment, still denying it. I heard a little joke that the way he's going to get out of these charges is that he's just going to go ahead and register as a Republican again. Okay. Because was he ever really a Democratic type of thinker? No. In New York. I'm sorry. This is why the people think, oh, well, the Democrats, they'll just lock everything down. Well, yeah, there is a Tammany Hall idiocy that exists in American politics. I'll grant that. I will. But it is kind of weird how people like Eric Adams thinks that he has to call himself a Democratic candidate to be able to get elected in New York. Okay. Yep. I guess you could say that it's another indicator of how polarized we are. On the other hand, by dint of the fact that he is a Democratic candidate, he falls under the rubric of, the rule of law. It seems, I knew when the Republicans started harping about law and order back in the day, what they were really talking about is that they make up the law and you better follow their orders. They just name their crimes the law. And if we don't accept that, see what happens. We'll show you what happens. Yeah, it was all a horse and pony show. We know that. They never cared one whit about law and order. They wanted just raw power. And they've worked very hard at it. And it seemed rich when I saw a leading conservative thinker ruminating about how terrible it was that after all this whole generation has been like programmed and brainwashed by liberal educators. I wish. And then this guy without any sense of irony started speculating if only we could establish some sort of think tanks and centers of learning that could disseminate the truthfulness and the glory of conservative thinking. And I'm like, is this guy working for the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society right now? And yeah, he is. So it's one constant gaslighting by these mofos. And that was another thing that, I don't know, I'm sure every mom's taught people this, but it's something that stuck with me. My mom always said that if you have to lie to get to your higher point, what worth is your higher point? If you have to lie to do a good thing, is the thing really that good? Think about it. So, three of us took that to heart. The other one became a used car salesman, made millions of bucks over being able to lie to people shamelessly. And then when they came back with lemons, he said, "Hey, F you. Buyer beware, motherfucker. Look at right here. Look at the fine print. Here, let me grab my Cracker Jack box magnifying glass that came as a gift inside the Cracker Jack box. See that right there? When you drive it off the lot, whatever happens, it's on you, motherfucker. Right here, you signed it. That's your initial. Don't even need the magnifying glass for your initial there. But you need the magnifying glass to see what the actual terms of the contract are. Anyway, three of us took it to heart. And I guess they say nice folks finish last. I don't believe that either. They would like us to believe that so that we get disheartened. But in spite of the ever-increasing amount of Trump banners and Trump swag going up as we get closer, at least to this town, it's crazy, man. These people are so afraid. They have a certain resignation, but they're also afraid. And it is manifested in the fact that they just keep putting up more Trump BS on their property, on their cars. People driving around with big old trucks with big old, "Hey, give me back my American flag, pal." You're not making the American flag into the swastika. I will not allow it. And I'll tell you, my middle name is Justice. Of course, my first name is Royal, so you figure it out. Something is not going to be kosher in Mudville, okay? I'm telling you. Don't let royal justice pounce on your head like a crow. Yeah, give me back our flag. Anyway, these people are quite afraid because they know in their heart of hearts, no matter what they say about Madam VP, she must be the devil because she's so good. Nobody can be that good. They must be the devil. Well, they're looking at, I gotta tell you, Lucifer incarnate every time they, I don't know, drive around with their MAGA swag. Yeah. I love how we here who vote Democratic are the brainwashed ones. When they're driving around in these like ridiculous cars with I don't know, car wash size American flags or conservative tire store owner American flags, these giant things, 2 of them on each truck driving around. Give me a break. With MAGA all over it too. I got to be clear about this. Yep. I didn't hear, for some reason, this last yachting season, I didn't hear so much about how many MAGA pleasure craft got swamped and sunk during their MAGA regattas. Because they have them, but for some reason, they didn't really report them too much. I wonder if it has anything to do with the hacked docs that Russia passed on to people, which Ken Klippenstein published what he got, which was on Vance, and you juxtapose that with the New York Times coming out and said, well, we looked through it and there was really nothing newsworthy there, because Vance was totally dissing on Trump throughout this whole, 20 pages, or was it more, 200? No, 4 pages, that's right. Klippenstein got 4, is it Klippenstein? Or Klippenstein. Anyway, old Kenny there decided to go ahead and publish it, and good on him. Because I would think it's newsworthy to see a bunch of Vance quotes that are in the public record compiled in a nice little concise form where he's like totally insulting Donald Trump. Why is that not of newsworthy interest, but Podesta's risotto recipe was and still is? Give me a break. I can't these. It is so obvious the fix supposedly is in, but hey, I think American people are kind of pissed off, right? They don't like the idea of their moms, their sisters, their aunts, their friends, their wives, daughters, etc. having to bleed out in the parking lot outside of an ER. Give me a break. That, we could just legislate climate change out of our society, that there's no such thing as climate change hurricanes, they're all a hoax. And then freaking DeSantis was on the TV today. I think he was on the Weather Channel just being totally scientific and accepting of it all. He's a hack. A mega hack. Because I have to deal with people around here who believe the bullshit that propagandist lying sack of shit put out. We don't have to worry about these hurricanes. They're all a hoax. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess that hoax 35-foot storm surge that everybody said was unsurvivable. Okay. They said 25, 35-foot storm surge coming right in. It's not survivable. It's a hoax. Your death will be a hoax. People went to death with COVID because they needed to kick the libs so bad. Well, I saw a little clip of a I don't know, woman in her 20s say, coming out of, looks like one of those mega mansions in the South they got. And she's wearing this like really weird red, I don't know, it's like a jumpsuit, like what are the girls called on the marching band that do the flags? God, all of a sudden I'm having a brain lock on that. Not the drill team, because they do it with like rifles and stuff. But the girls that do it with like the flags, well, she's wearing some sort of weird red tight dress like that. I gotta tell you, pretty tight around the nether regions down there. You know, if you're looking for, you know, your lost camel, shall we say. And she comes out and starts talking about, I'm leaving the blue, I'm going back to Jesus. And then does this like really weird song. Fortunately, it was recorded, so she was just lip syncing it, because it would have been horrendous if she was going to do it live with the wind and the mic and all that. But it sort of reminded me of well, this is what happens when people grow up with the prosperity gospel. Everything about what this woman is singing is anti-Christ. God. But she's leaving the blue and going to red. So I'm just saying, go with red, or go red, go dead. I guess that's what will happen. It always does, and people, you know, they'll go to their deathbed with COVID because they'd much rather go red. All right. Okay, well, it took me a while to get that out. Quite a while, it looks like. Oh, my gosh, I better give you a rundown quickly about what we are, looks like, quickly going to have to go through here in what we have left here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy this week at Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. The mother of a South Carolina neo-Nazi leader has been arrested on January 6 charges. Yeah, well, she effed around. Smartmatic and Newsmax reached a confidential agreement just before the defamation case involving the 2020 election was to start. I wish they would have gone to trial. I want to see the discovery on that one. And a Willamette Valley, Oregon farm is pairing solar with agriculture by installing panels to generate power and protect delicate crops from intensifying heat. After the break, we have a bunch of crows that are currently just cawing, so I apologize for that if that's bleeding through. Hey, after the break, we're going to move to the chef's table, where Argentina's poverty rate spiked almost 53% in the first 6 months of President Millei's shock therapy. And a Hong Kong court sentenced a former editor of a shuttered news publication to 21 months in prison in a sedition case widely seen as an indicator of media freedom in the city. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Just going to get right into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, and it's by Jordan Green, a freelance investigative reporter working at Raw Story. A South Carolina restaurant owner who brought her then teenage son, now a neo-Nazi leader, to Washington, D.C. on January 6 of 21, has been charged with breaching the U.S. Capitol. Christina Prazer-Fair, who runs the Cornwallis House Tea Company in Winnsboro, South Carolina, was arrested yesterday, Thursday, and charged with disorderly and disruptive conduct and other violations, according to a federal arrest warrant. Prazer-Fair traveled to D.C. with her mother and her son, David Fair, who went on to join the white nationalist group Patriot Front and lead the Southern Sons Active Club. The latter group is part of a network of neo-Nazis across the Southeast. Be sure to check out my social media feeds at Justice Putnam for quick access to the show notes and links, diaries posted 10 minutes before showtime so that you can read the actual articles by these actual reporters in their entirety. Which, speaking of which, Jeremy Barr at the Washington Post brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Voting technology company Smartmatic and conservative cable channel Newsmax have reached a settlement averting a defamation trial that would have begun on Monday over allegations that Newsmax personalities and guests spread lies about the 2020 election and Smartmatic's role in it. Details of the confidential settlement were not released. The settlement came in the process of picking a jury, which was underway, with the trial expected to kick off next week. Smartmatic settled a similar lawsuit against far-right One America News in April, also for an undisclosed sum. The company still has an ongoing lawsuit against Fox News, which could reach trial next year. Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed for that. Alejandro Figueroa at Oregon Public Broadcasting brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. It's an early, drizzly September morning at Our Table Cooperative Farm in Sherwood, just a short drive south from Portland. The blueberry fields are done for the season, and some of the sunflowers are beginning to wilt. While the growing season is almost over, crews are busy at the farm planting a different kind of crop, solar. This doesn't look like what most people imagine when they think of solar panels. The crew hoists up a large solar array on a crane, while one worker fastens the panels on a 15-foot high steel beam. It looks like a giant rectangular umbrella, and there are 6 of them. On one side, the panels will generate energy for the farm, but Narendra Varma, the co-op's executive director, says there's another key benefit: shade. And of course, one could just put shade cloth, but That would be a lot cheaper than fancy solar panels, but the advantage here is that the shade is controllable. The last few years, summers in Oregon and across the Pacific Northwest have been erratic with more frequent hot days. Our table grows all sorts of produce, from raspberries to tomatoes, peppers, and turnips. But it's getting to be more challenging to grow some of the most heat-sensitive crops like lettuce and other salad greens. The greens get bitter, they bolt, which means they put up flower stalks, and then they're inedible at that point, or they just use a ton of water and not really produce a lot because they're heat-stressed. The solar project will help with that. It's aptly called the Lettuce Shine Solar Project. Farmers at the co-op will be able to plant leafy greens under the elevated panels. On the flip side, the panels will generate about 500 kilowatts a year, enough to power the on-farm grocery store and the freezers. And because they're mounted on dual-axis motors, they can control whether they want to optimize the panels for energy or shade. Okay, go and read the rest of that article by following the show notes and links diary by going to my social media feed at Justice Putnam. And now let us go to our break. And when we get back from that really short break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, have no fun. Blumhouse's latest is Speak No Evil, a horror thriller about a troubled family on vacation that meets a fun, hot family, goes to their isolated house for a week, and discovers that Fun and Hot are psychotic killers. Full disclosure, not my thing. So going into it, I wondered, why do we make this type of movie? Is Blumhouse capitalizing off our anxieties over and fear of other people? And, because Fun and Hot are British to our family of Yankees, living abroad in a foreign world that offers false promises of wealth, but in truth doesn't care about their well-being, are they even straight up profiting off our xenophobia? But then I thought, hold on, maybe I'm letting my issues get the best or worst of me. I mean, it's just not my thing. So maybe. But then, I read an article about how Speak No Evil is a remake of the 2022 Danish film Gæsterne, or The Guests, which has a much grimmer, harsher, and, article's words not mine, near-reactionary ending of, you got what you deserve because you couldn't step up and protect your family from me, my wife, and, I kid you not, our Arab accomplice. Then I'm like, okay. So Blumhouse changed the film, especially the ending, to get just far enough away from the we're too wimpy liberal accommodating to act on clear stranger danger warning signs, and found a center we could all love, the poor tortured U.S. male. Emasculated by the weakness and neediness of his women, of course he's drawn to strong, fun, dominant father with his playful hot wife and his near-mute son who can neither make demands nor talk back. But wait, says, in my imagination, writer-director of Speak No Evil James Watkins, wait! You're missing my point. You only get that type of masculocentric dream family from a foundation of psychotic, violent oppression. And my new ending allows for the dominated to get their own at the end, see? Okay, fair point. Maybe. Still not my thing, but maybe. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Spoiler alert, both major political parties are trying to minimize the impact of voters choosing third-party candidates in the 2024 election. What could fix the spoiler effect and allow third-party candidates to still compete? Ranked choice voting. CBS News and the Wall Street Journal report that Green Party candidate Jill Stein accepted in-kind assistance from Republican-affiliated lawyers to keep herself on the ballot in Wisconsin and be restored to the ballot in Nevada in hopes of siphoning off votes from Kamala Harris. Earlier this summer, Democrats sued to keep Robert F. Kennedy Jr. off the ballot in 5 states. Though he suspended his candidacy, Kennedy remains on the ballot in 33 states. Ranked choice voting allows third-party candidates like Stein, Kennedy, and Libertarian Chase Oliver to compete without the spoiler effect. Voters could, for example, rank Stein first, Harris second, and Oliver third. In ranked choice, if a candidate has a 50% plus 1 majority, he or she wins outright. If there is no 50% plus 1 majority, the lowest vote getter is eliminated, voters' second choices are used, and totals are recalculated. The process continues until the winning candidate reaches a 50% plus 1 majority. Only Alaska and Maine will use ranked choice for presidential voting this year, but 5 states are considering RCV ballot measures in November. We have more on ranked choice at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 52 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the mid to upper 80s with plentiful sunshine throughout the day, winds light and variable, clear skies overnight with lows once again in the low to mid 50s. Winds will remain light and variable till tomorrow, which will, except for a few afternoon clouds, be mainly sunny with highs once again in the mid to upper 80s, though winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Similar conditions on Sunday and Monday, though everything is subject to change, is it not? Looks like ragweed pollen is rated high in our little hamlet of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is still in the good range at 22 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is moderate at level 5. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.09 inches, visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 88%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 56 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 59 degrees and cloudy with a moderate advisory for thunderstorms. Rome is 82 and fair, also with a moderate advisory for thunderstorms. Kabul is 66 and clear. Hong Kong is 85 and clear. Tokyo is 74 degrees and cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 54 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees and fair. Chicago, Illinois is 68, partly cloudy with wind and a gale watch. And New York, New York is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, cloudy, waiting for a storm surge. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Medina Calatrava at the Associated Press World Desk brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Argentina's poverty rate jumped from almost 42 to 53% during the first 6 months of Javier Milei's presidency, the statistics agency reported yesterday, Thursday. A steep rise reflecting the pain of the country's most intense austerity program in recent memory. The government's finding that Argentina's half-year poverty rate in 2024 had surged to its highest level since 2003, when the country was reeling from a catastrophic foreign debt default and currency devaluation, marks a setback for the far-right economist. Is that what he is? So far, foreign investors and the International Monetary Fund, to which Argentina owes $43 billion with a B, have cheered its controversial fiscal shock therapy that has succeeded in pulling down the country's monthly inflation from 25.5% last December to 4.2% in recent months. Argentina's inflation, now running more than 230% annually, is among the worst in the world. Bracing for negative news hours before the poverty report's release, Milei's spokesperson sought to deflect the blow in a lengthy press conference. Oh, Gish Gallop? The government inherited a disastrous situation, Manuel Adorni told reporters, lambasting the decades of unbridled spending under Milei's left-leaning Peronist predecessors that generated chronic inflation. Says who? They left us on the brink of being a country with essentially all of its inhabitants poor. Unlike previous populist governments, it kept consumer spending high at the cost of a massive budget deficit. Milei dismantled price controls, cut subsidies on energy and transport, and devalued the peso by 54% in December after taking office. The austerity measures and deregulation have marked a brutal contraction in spending power and dragged the economy deep into recession. Candice Loon at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A Hong Kong court sentenced a former editor of a shuttered news publication to 20 months in prison yesterday, Thursday, in a sedition case widely seen as an indicator of media freedom in the city, once hailed as a beacon of press freedom in Asia. A second editor was freed after his sentence was reduced because of ill health and time already served in custody. Former Stan News editor-in-chief Chung Pui-Kuen and former acting editor-in-chief Patrick Lam are the first journalists convicted under a colonial-era sedition law since the former British colony returned to Chinese rule in 1997. Chung was sentenced to 21 months, but is expected to stay in prison for about 10 months given his pre-conviction detention. Lam was also sentenced but allowed to go free. The online news outlet was one of the last in Hong Kong that dared to criticize authorities in Beijing who had imposed a crackdown on dissidents following massive pro-democracy protests in 2019. Its closure in December of 2021 came months after the demise of the pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily, whose jailed founder, Jimmy Lai, is battling collusion charges under a tough national security law imposed by Beijing in 2020. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day, all night, and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.